Yeah. Hey everybody, it's Brooke with The Buttered Home and welcome to my Messy Kitchen Live. It's Friday night and I hope you are feeling as renewed as I am about the weekend, even though it's raining cats and dogs. We have had an eventful day and we are excited to be here with you. We'll talk more about that in a little bit because everybody likes to hear my crazy, silly life stories, right? Everybody put something in the comments if you do. Tonight we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about what you want to do if you want to wash your jar. We'll talk more about that in just a few minutes and how to do that. And also we're going to talk about, and I alluded to this last night, what is the difference between discard bacon and sourdough bacon? I'm going to try to kind of tell you about that in some layman's terms, how I had to digest it, and maybe it'll help some of you out there. So let's get started and let's take a look at what we've got today. We're gonna go ahead and take our lids off and we're about to discard and feed. All right, so I've removed my lids and we got a little hooch going on here and I hope you can see that. And if you're mixing along with me, you possibly have that too. It's a little brown liquid. Because I'm using a bigger jar, it's a little hard to see. But I actually have more hooch on top with Willie than I do with Waylon. And if you missed it last night, we had the big reveal of our names. Our starter that we started with the whole wheat flour is Willie because he's more natural and organic. And then Waylon is the one that we started with plain, unbleached, all-purpose flour. And if you want to know why we did this, go to the top of our Facebook page and the last 3 nights are pinned up there and you can get caught up if you're just joining us. So moving right along, my jars are kind of yucky and dirty and there's no scraping that I can do to get that off. Now a good idea at some point during the feeding stage is to transfer to a clean jar. Now if you don't have a clean jar, you can do what I'm going to do tonight. And let me move my lids and I'm going to slide Willie and Waylon out of the way. We're actually going to feed in a bowl and then wash our jars and let this just hang out. Of course, you'll probably not see me do that because it's going to take a little bit to wash the jars and we'll do that after we're done. But we are going to go ahead and discard into our zip top bag and discard half of it. And yeah, it's okay if you get rid of all that hooch. The hooch is not bad, but he's not good either. So we're going to get rid of half of that starter. And I'm just going to scrape that down and set him to the side. Because we're going to discard first. Now you could totally discard, go ahead and discard into your mixing bowls. But I'm not doing that since I had so much hooch on top of Willie. So let's discard Waylon. And he's a little thicker. So I'm going to have to help him along. But I'm just eyeballing about half here, guys. It's not rocket science. Just get rid of about half or so of it. You can feed and have successful starter with just a little bit. All right, so let me wipe this off inside the bag. Just so I don't use up so much of my paper towel. Set it to the side. And this is why I roll it down, because see how much gunk I've got on it? So I roll it back up and I seal it, push some of the air out of it, just so it takes up less space in the trash. And then into the trash it goes. No fruit flies. All right, so we are going to clean out Waylon into this mixing bowl. And I'm just going to use my spatula to scrape as much as I can out of him. And like I said, you don't have to have a ton. We're going to end up probably with about 100 grams of each. But you don't have to have the measurements. No big deal. All right, so I think I have enough of him out of here, and this is strictly just to clean my jar. So I'm gonna set Waylon to the side, and then I'm gonna put him in my prepared dishwater to soak. And if you have plenty of wide mouth jars, you can certainly just go ahead and discard or off put into your fresh jar and go ahead and feed. But I don't, so this is why we're doing what we're doing. Let me scrape off Waylon off my spatula. And then we'll put Willie in a bowl. And look, I'm just doing 2 as an experiment. We talked about this the last 3 nights, that I started this one with whole wheat flour, which provides a good, healthy protein base to your starter. But I've seen talk of lots of folks who actually have started with unbleached all-purpose. So that's what we're testing here, and so far it's worked out really well. Okay, so I have my tepid water heating up back here. I'm gonna fill my little measuring cup, even though I'm not measuring it. And the reason why we're kind of eyeballing things is because I want you to get a feel for the texture. So we did start Willie with the wheat flour, but we have been feeding Willie with unbleached all-purpose, and we're going to continue that tonight. So let me add a little bit of that tepid water in there, and we'll get it mixed up. And you should be able to see the texture that we're going for a little bit better with me doing it in the bowl versus the jar. And don't fret if you add too much water and you're too drippy, which I don't think we're going to be. And when you do it in a bowl like this, you want to make sure you get all that excess flour and mix it in. Now I'm going to use a regular spoon just to test my consistency. And we are like a good gloppy cake batter, or a really thick pancake batter, which is what you want to see. Now, Willie's gonna hang out while I clean his jar right there. Now let's feed Waylon. Waylon is our starter that we started with plain unbleached flour, and we're gonna feed him with the same. And I'm just going to use my spatula to mix him up. Put him a splash of water in there. Splash more. And it's been so funny to me, last night and tonight, I have noticed that Waylon has needed a little more water than Willie. That is odd. Big D said, that's odd. Don't ask me if there's any kind of science behind that, because I don't know. I should have given my disclaimer again tonight that I am not a nutritional expert, and I am not a sourdough expert. We're all learning together. We have an even playing field here. All right, so let's see what our texture looks like here. And I think he's a little thick. Yeah, he's a little thick, which is fine. He would probably be fine, but I'm gonna just add just a splash more water. And you know, when I splash it in, I'm probably not doing any more than a teaspoon or so. Let's see if he's a little looser. See if he'll come off the spoon by himself. Yep, good and gloppy. All right, so we're gonna let Waylon hang out with Willie over here while we clean our jar. And let me get tidied up and get everything over here. Okay, so I said we were going to talk about two things tonight, and the first one being that why we're washing our jar. Let me get my cameraman's attention here. Big D has had a busy day. We're going to give him a pass. Do I have questions?
Yeah, can you save all your throwouts into one jar? Keep them in the fridge until you're ready to make some bread, using a third of it to grow as you would with the keeper or not.
Okay, so the question was, can you keep all your discards in one jar and cook with it? Let me be clear, we are establishing a starter. So right now, your discards are not going to be fit to keep, right? Only when they reach a fully fermented point do you want to keep or cook with your discards. For anywhere from 7 to up to sometimes 30 days, you'll need to discard and feed until you reach a certain point. Now, I'm going to show you Willie one more time. You see he's kind of flat and doughy. When I discarded, he looked just like this, just like it. He was just a little more wet. When you are fully fermented and ready to cook, you're going to look like this. This has been in the refrigerator for 2 days, but this is Phyllis. And Phyllis still has all these bubbles. This amount of starter is the same as this. So she is fully fermented, and that's the difference. This looks like a flat, kind of almost really wet biscuit dough, and this is fully fermented. When it gets to this point, yes, you can discard all into one container and keep it in the fridge for a week and then cook with all of it. Or you can cook immediately with it. And that's the difference. So right now, during the stage where we are growing the starter, you want to toss out all of your discards. Next question.
2 questions, same time.
Okay.
Do you feed with a certain amount? Do I pour the brown liquid off or stir it in?
Okay, first question is, I don't know if I feed with the same amount because I'm not really measuring anything. I try to feed back in exactly what I have discarded off, but I'm not measuring it per se. I'm kind of eyeballing it. When you're making or growing the starter, it only needs a little bit. So if you over discard or if you overfeed, there's no wrong answer to that. So it doesn't have to be exact. Just get as close as you can. And what was the second part of the question?
It was the second question. Do I pour the brown liquid off or stir it in?
You can do either. I choose to pour it off just because it looks icky to me and it smells icky too. But as the good bacteria grow and eat up and push out all that bad bacteria, it will go away. So if you didn't say it didn't pour off and you were left with some whenever you're discarding and feeding, don't sweat it, just stir it in. It'll be fine. Because it's not going to stay brown forever. At some point you're going to have your good bacteria will multiply and cause fermentation, and all that bad stuff will be gone. And hopefully we'll be there sooner than later. Did I have anything else, or was that good? Okay. All right. So why am I washing my jars? Or why am I changing my jars? So I should have kept one out. So over time, there is that residue on the sides of the jar that's sometimes hard to scrape off. If you're not careful or it sits there too long, it can get kind of fuzzy and sometimes promote mold growth. Or if it starts to kind of get stagnant, it will hinder the growth of the fermentation of the existing starter in the bottom of the jar. There are some people who feed or change their jar every time they feed. I don't. I do it about halfway through like we've done tonight. And even with my established starter, I just look at the jar whenever I use it and make that determination as to whether or not I need to pour it into a clean jar. But I don't think that you can pour it off into a clean jar too often, because you're giving it a habitat that's clean and that is ready for it to thrive. So changing your jar, there's no such thing as too often. However, there is such thing as not enough. So I would say even once you establish your starter, that probably once a week that you feed in a bowl and clean your jars and go back in your jar later that day, at least once a week. Or if it's in the refrigerator, it should be fine. It won't have any mold growth. But if you start to see pink anything on the sides, on the top, the starter itself, you got to trash it. You got to start over. Pink is bad. Pink is mold. The dark hooch that we saw on Willie, that hooch is not mold. A lot of people, they get to this stage and they have that brown liquid that sits on top and they think that they have ruined it, and 9 times out of 10 they throw it out. I did this back in 2021. So I'm speaking from experience, but you're not. The hooch is a normal part of the process. So the second thing we're going to talk about is the difference between why in the world is it so confusing when people talk about discard recipes versus sourdough recipes. Okay, and I'm going to try to explain this in a way that I understand it, and hopefully it'll be where you can understand it. Once you have a fully established, well-fed, healthy starter like Phyllis, you don't have to discard to feed and use her. So on night 2, I talked a little bit about what my cooking schedule is. And if you opt to do this, you need to realistically decide what your cooking schedule is going to be to determine how you store your starter. So there are 2 schools of thought on this. There is the counter storage, similar to what we're doing while we're going through the fermentation or the growth process. And then there is fridge storage. So for me, the fridge storage option works best because I can kind of put Phyllis and Willie and Waylon to bed once they grow up and thrive. I can put them to sleep in the refrigerator, and I don't have to worry about fruit flies and mold and things like that. And then you can do like what I did this morning, and this is Phyllis 2.0. I have a lot of Phyllis 2.0 because I overfed her for several days to work out self-rising flour. And I think I talked about that on night 2. So that story is a good reason to go back and watch night 2. But this morning I came in and I took Phyllis 2.0 out of the refrigerator, and I did not discard. She still smelled pleasant. She smelled a little hungry, and that means she smelled like beer or, yeah, pretty much beer. She had kind of a slight alcohol-y smell, so I did not discard because I'm going to use her this weekend, and I want to make sure that I have plenty of her to do all of the things that I have planned. So I did not discard, but I fed her, mixed her up really well, fed her just like we fed Willie and Waylon tonight, and I put the lid back on and put her on the counter to come to room temperature. She has doubled in size since I fed her, and she is what they call probably at peak or just over peak. And at this time, I can actually cook with her and feed her again and put her back in the fridge. Or I could just simply discard and make a discard recipe. Now, a discard recipe is one that it does not matter if she has peaked or not. So peak is when you feed them, and anywhere from 4 to 6 hours, they double in size and they stay there for a little while. That means your yeast is active and the fermentation, everything that's hungry is eating. And if you put that in bread, it's going to continue to eat, and you're going to get a much better rise and fermentation process of your bread. Discard recipes are smaller amounts typically, and it does not matter when you fed it last. So if your Phyllis lived in the refrigerator all week and you simply wanted to make some brownies, you could discard what you needed, maybe 100 grams, make your brownies, and put her back in the refrigerator, or feed her and put her back in the refrigerator, whichever you chose to do. So it can be kind of confusing when you talk about discard recipes versus sourdough recipes. It's better if you're making a fully fermented sourdough loaf that you feed and allow to come and double in size before you bake. A discard recipe doesn't have to wait that long. You can pour off what you need and bake with it and still get a nice mellow flavor. There's lots of bread recipes that you can make with discard too, but they won't have that really pungent sourdough taste. Got a question?
What kind of flour did you use, I'm assuming, with that one?
With Phyllis? Okay, so let me explain about Phyllis. And guys, if you haven't already, we've got other nights of videos, and those are well worth your time to watch, where we go into a lot of the mistakes that I've made, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes versions of Phyllis and Phyllis 2.0. On day 9, I came out here, and Phyllis was my starter that I made in 9 days. And I came out here, and she had puffed up, and she was fully fermented, and she smelled like yeast. She smelled like yeast rolls. She was beautiful and wonderful and marvelous. And I got so excited that I went to discard and feed her again. And I discarded in a bag like we did tonight. And I left it on the counter because I was going to decide what I was going to do, if I was going to make another starter or if I was going to cook with her. And I fed Phyllis with self-rising flour. And that's a no-no. We should be feeding with either whole wheat or rye flour or unbleached all-purpose. And we started Phyllis and Willie with unbleached wheat flour, but we're continuing to feed with unbleached all-purpose. Waylon was started with unbleached all-purpose as a test. So what I did over the next few days is I discarded and really fed Phyllis in a separate jar. So I took my discard and made another Phyllis, which is the Phyllis that I showed you a minute ago. This is Phyllis 2.0. This is the original that I thought I ruined with the self-rising flour. Self-rising flour has soda, salt, and it's bleached, okay? We don't want to use any type of bleached flour ever, even bleached all-purpose, because bleached is bleached. It is whitened with a chemical, and it's going to totally skew your results if you get any if you used a bleached flour. That's just my opinion. It's neither right nor wrong, but that's what I've seen, so it's best just to err on the side of caution and get that unbleached flour whenever you're doing this. But I think I fed the self-rising out of her. So this is Phyllis 2.0, and she has now been fed with unbleached all-purpose flour. And I'm gonna cook with her. I may do a little something with her tonight, even if Big D will let me stay out here after we get done and stay with me out here, because he's good company. So that's really all, and I hope the discard versus sourdough explanation was a good one. So it's the same thing, it's just a matter of if it's fed or not. Sourdough is fed, discard is not fed, and you can cook with both. And to answer the earlier question again, If you don't have time to cook, but you want to discard and feed your fully established starter, you can get a big jar like this and collect all your discard in it for the week and keep it in the refrigerator and have one big happy sourdough discard cooking on Saturday or Sunday. You can totally do that, and that's actually a good use of that. You can also save it and dilute it with water and use it as plant fertilizer. Plants love it. And if you do some home composting, you can also discard of it just like it is in your compost pile or your compost bin. It adds a nutrient dense boost to your compost pile. So those are all really good options for how to use your discard. And you don't have to cook a single loaf of bread with sourdough starter. You can make things like homemade sourdough Cheez-Its, regular crackers with whatever seasoning you want on them. You can make pie crust. There are even people who've made gravy with it, battered their chicken to fry with it. There are any number. There are tons of resources out there to find how to use your sourdough starter once we get it established, which hopefully will be sooner than later. We're seeing all the good signs, and I think we'll get there before we know it. If you are making your starter along with me, make sure that you snap a picture and put it in the comments, or either put it on your own timeline and tag me at The Buttered Home. I want to see your starters. I want to see where you are. If you have any questions, you're welcome to direct message me, or even just ask them in the comment feed here. I'm learning, and whatever knowledge that I have that I can share with you guys to make this easier to do and easier to understand, that's what I want to do. But there are a lot of resources out there that make this a lot harder than it should be, and we're here to show you that not only is it not hard, but it's also a pretty interesting hobby and a whole lot of fun. And you know, it's small things that you can do in life that help things improve the quality of your life. So a lot of times during the winter like this, when we have these dreary days and stuff, it's hard to get excited about anything. But for the last 15, 16 days, every morning when I get up, I'm like running out here to see what Phyllis or Willie and Waylon have done. It's given me like a renewed purpose to come out here and look and watch this very beautiful natural thing happen. So we're going to try to wrap things up soon. So if you've got any questions, ask them real quick. And if we have time, we'll answer them. If not, I'll come back in the comments after we're done. But I got to tell you a funny little story. He told me I could tell it. I wasn't going to tell it, but I'll go ahead and tell it. My sweet Big D, and I wish can you just get up and come walk? No, just walk around here and wave, please, please. People, everybody, when I post pictures of you, they're just walk around here and then you can walk right back. He hates this, and now he's mad at me, but I'm gonna cook for him this weekend. He'll get over it. So this is my sweet Big D. My sweet Big D. All right, now you can go back to your seat.
Thank you.
So he sat here right here with me every night, and I've enjoyed it so much, and he's worked my cameras for me. When we first started doing this, we used to cook live every Monday night, and he always worked my cameras for me. And then we got like off into a bunch of projects. He built himself a shop that we had been trying to build for probably 15 years, and he finally got to do it. So then I was kind of on my own naturally because he was busy. And that took about a year. And then once we got done with that, he had the bright idea to build me this studio. So I talk a lot about how much I love and appreciate him, and I always have, and I'm not going to get sappy or weepy or anything like that, because I do so appreciate him, because even before I started The Buttered Home, whatever I wanted to do, whatever I was interested in, he has been a good and faithful husband, and has been my #1 fan no matter what I did. And when we started this, that didn't stop. and he has set his life aside over the last 9 months and built me this beautiful space, and has done 99.3% of it right by himself in the heat of the summer, on a roof, on, you know, and he works full time. So he did all this after work and on the weekends. So I'm proceeding this story with all of that so that you can see, number one, that even in the best of circumstances, whenever we are talented and know what we're doing, that we can we can still have days where things don't go so well. Well, we have propane here in the shop. I have it here for my cooktop, and I've got a little fireplace over there. Well, we're in the process of finishing some little things up. We've got a little bathroom over here off camera, and he ran all my gas lines and is in the process of putting wall boards up. And last night when I got home, I walked in and he goes, "Is that your starter that stinks so bad?" And I said, "Probably." And he said, "Well, it almost smells like propane. Come in here." So I walked in, and I didn't smell anything but the starter, because yesterday it did kind of stink. And it did smell better today. I should have said that to begin with. But I didn't really smell anything. He said, "Well, I'm just real concerned because I was using my nail gun to put the wall boards up in the bathroom, and I was afraid that I had nailed one of the gas lines." And I said, "Well, how would we know?" He said, "Well, we would smell it, you know." Well, I never did smell propane. And if you have smelled propane, it has a very distinct odor to it. And that's an additive, right, Danny? That's actually an additive. Propane actually doesn't have a smell, but they add, aftermarket, they add a smell to it so that you can smell it if you've got a problem. Praise the Lord. So I never did smell it, and I've got a nose like nobody. You know, I talked about my gag reflex last night, so you just trust me on that. But I never did smell it, and everything was good. So I got up all excited to come out here and check on Willie and Waylon this morning before I left from work, and I walked in and I opened the door, and it hit me. So I called him real quick. I said, "I think we got a gas leak." So he went and he bought this little sniffer tool, and he sent me a video, and I wish I had it so I could share it. It's pretty funny. But it's him, and it's just that sniffer in the video and his feet, and he's at the door over here, and he opens the door and never steps inside, and that sniffer meter goes in the danger level. So we could have had a really big fiasco here, but let me tell you about my Big D. He found it and he fixed it. And I am forever grateful that he possesses not the gift to be able to do all these things, but the faith and the, I don't know what the word is for it, to figure it out. The gumption is what I want to say, because I would not have known how to fix it. He fixed it with minimal problems to the walls, because the gas lines run through the walls, and you can't even tell that he fixed it. He's so smart and so innovative, but he is human, and he sure did. When he was using that nail gun, he right into a gas line. So that just goes to show you that you can invest months of time and craftsmanship into something as beautiful as all of this, and in the blink of an eye, you can mess something up. And it's all in how you handle it. He did not react. Instead, he researched, and he kept it together, and he got it fixed. And I'm forever thankful for that. So he told me I could share. I know I wasted 5 minutes telling that story, but if you've never been with me, you know I like to talk. And I'm going to talk, because this is my channel. Oh, y'all, I have enjoyed this. Yes, tomorrow's Saturday and the day after is Sunday, but we will still be here because our starter will need to be fed at 7. I got to go and get these jars cleaned up. I appreciate y'all sticking with me. Thank you as always for watching and being here with us. And for me and my precious, talented, devoted, sweet Big D, we sure love y'all. Bye.